What is the most effective psychological trick you use? Predictability means safe. I'm a school teacher with a high number of students with trauma, major issues while getting my routines established. But they are now super warm to me because I'm reliably predictable. I have 2 outfits that I alternate. A mon/wed/free and a to/thurs. Same greeting at the start of class. Same start to every class, etc. Have very transparent discipline too. They know exactly what gets attention and what doesn't. If they can predict what will happen, they feel safe because they are in control of choosing their outcome for the day. Doing something you're avoiding by just doing the smallest possible step, like washing one plate. It cracks the procrastination paralysis and you usually end up doing the whole thing anyway. I think it's called the hairy arms trick. When I'm about to hand in the first version of a piece of work, I will leave a small but noticeable error that's easy to fix. It's always the error that my boss notices and suggests changing, which means that he/she feels involved in the process, but also doesn't nitpick for something arbitrary to criticize. Fake it till you make it can really trick yourself into doing something you didn't want to do. For example, I really don't feel like starting on my report. Let me just pretend that I'm interested in doing it, look over the data and act like I was getting any information out of them. And then next thing I know I was balls deep into my report. Remember people's names. Greet them by it when you see them. Even if that's the only time this week you might. People really like it when someone remembers them. It's easy credit. Talk softer so people either de-escalate or pay more attention. I'm not nervous. I'm excited nerve killer every time. Not sure if it's a trick, but I can ask my so to do something a million times, and the answer will always be later. But if I say, okay, don't worry about it, I'll go do it, he will do it immediately. I wouldn't call it a trick, but empathizing with someone goes a long way. If you can explain their perspective back to them in a way that actually proves you understand it, you have a much better chance of getting them to listen to your perspective. Ben Franklin effect. If someone doesn't like you, convince them to do you a favor or lend you something. It'll trick their subconscious into convincing them they like you. Very handy at work. If they can do it, I can do it. Almost every single job, position, title or accomplishment has been achieved by someone that other people look at and go, how the frick did that moron make it to where he is? And if those morons can do it, I sure as crap can do it as well. Silence. It's so powerful. If I want to find out more about what someone is really thinking or feeling, instead of nodding along or using some verbal filler, I just don't say or do anything. It's amazing how people respond. So often as people we interrupt each other before things reach a deeper level. Plus, some people find silence uncomfortable and need to fill it. I've found out so much this way. I don't know if it's effective yet, but I'll try to make myself believe that my due dates for college assignments are one day before, so I can pressure me and finish them on time. I literally gave my classmates treats so that they would stop being bullies. It actually worked. Edit. Gave them a treat every time they did something nice. I even did a survey for a class exercise to see what everyone's favorite lolly was. You can remind yourself to do any task by leaving a random object in the middle of the floor on your way out of the room. When you come back in, you'll see the object and remember why you left it there. Works every time. When I was younger and I wanted to get pizza, I was whispering pizza and showing my father a meme with pizza in it. Sometime later my dad has this genius idea to order pizza lol. After I woke up I opened the fridge to eat my ice cream, but it has been eaten. I immediately knew it was my brother. If I asked him, did you eat my ice cream? I'm sure he gonna deny lol, but what I did is, I told him I bought you an ice cream. Go eat it. Then he immediately said I already eat it. And you know what happened to him after? If you tell someone you need their help, they are more likely to do what it is you want or need, rather than you telling them to just do it. Illusion of choice. Instead of saying you need to wash the dishes, ask if they'd rather wash dishes or do laundry, or give a choice of time. Do you want to do the dishes now, or in an hour? It makes a lot of people's brains skip the big answer, which is none of those. At work, when I know something is not working due to a mistake that someone else has made, I ask them if I've done something wrong, or if I understand the process correctly. I find more people are willing to own up to something and fix it quickly if they are not made to feel defensive with direct accusations. One of the best ways to defuse a conflict while also getting what you want from a person is to compliment them, telling them that they are the qualities you want them to start being in that moment, and then they will usually begin to start acting like it all. The idea of a compliment throws them off and makes them want to listen more, and then the things you said which they are not will bother their ego, and they will usually try to start acting like the way you complimented them for being, because to not do so would prove you wrong, and they would feel foolish. You can literally trick their own ego against them. This is also a great way to make enemies like you more. I've made enemies into friends using this trick. I'm a salesman who is afraid to call. Really, it is like a phobia. In my job you mostly hear a no than a yes, and it makes me feel down. So recently I run into this technique when you have to take a no for your goal. Each morning I write 70 circles. Each time I hear no I color it, and this crap just works. Somehow your brain rewards yourself for a no, and you don't feel like crap. Also, I never sounded so confident. I'm not afraid to offer anything. I want this no. My results have never been this great so far. I want to use this method in regular life also. The human brain can usually differentiate between a fake polite smile and a genuine one. So I just put myself in my golden retriever's mind when meeting new people, and I can feel my face light up like, oh boy, new person. Friend. I've gotten better service at places and free stuff. Saying thanks rather than please. As a teacher I use this on small things like instructions when I don't want to argue with students. It's amazing how much more effective the sentence get out your book thanks is compared to get out your book please. It implies that there is no conversation or option for the students. And it is great to see so many people with their book out ready to start learning. I have said this when only 10% have their book out and everyone rushes to get their book out. Everyone wants praise and to be part of the group. Whenever I feel myself getting overwhelmed, I picture myself taking problems and putting them in a box. Then later that night I come back to the box and deal with the problems then. When someone is on their phone, you can hand them anything and they will 100% hold it for you. Yeah, anything. Read this on a thread a few months back, and it's actually surprisingly effective. If you're in the middle of a conversation, even better if it's a serious one, and you hand the other person something, they usually take it without question or hesitation. Help me to understand, or some variation thereof. I work in an office, and while I hate 99% of the dumb corporate buzzword Kool-Aid that gets passed around, I honestly feel like that phrase has a lot of merit. On a daily basis I'm having to collaborate on projects, pick up where someone left off, and in some cases, fix a problem another coworker caused. It's really easy to start treating differences in procedure or simple human error as malicious or lazy when you're neck deep in it for 40+ hours a week. Why did you do it this way? Or what's the point of this? Maybe more direct. But I found it puts the other party on the defensive, and they spend more time trying to avoid making me upset than actually reaching a resolution. Asking them to collaborate and help me to understand how a decision was made, or why a process was done the way it was, is much more collaborative and productive. As an added bonus, I sometimes get a good insight into an unexpected solution that I wouldn't have thought of, and my coworkers don't see me as a growling ogre they can't come to for help. Okay, well I gotta get going. Talk to you later. Then walk away. Most people don't know how to react when you suddenly decide you're done with a conversation and leave. It works exceptionally well on people who will just keep talking. If you hard end a conversation, the brief silence will give you time to leave / hang up / drive away. Is it rude? Maybe. Is it effective? Yes. If you open an argument with a poorly constructed statement, it's like people immediately lower their own IQ to attack it with a dumb reply. Then you catch them off guard with the good stuff and they stay off balance. Ladies and gentlemen, a personal favorite of mine is the speak softly method, patent pending. If you end up in an argument and the other party is yelling, tone down your own volume slowly. Don't speak too softly too fast, or you'll be seen as weak. Don't be too loud for too long or you're back to where you started. Just lower the tone of conversation down to an acceptable level. Maintain a calm and collected demeanor, and in no time at all your yelling match will have turned into a more or less amicable debate, where you can resolve the issue. PS. If you want to grab someone's attention via email, comment, etc. Paragraphs are key. No one likes reading long blocks of text. Keep it short to begin, and then people will be hooked, so you can make the paragraphs a little longer. When someone tells an offensive joke, either ask them to explain it to you, because you don't get it, or ask them to repeat themselves a few times. Having to explain the joke, or repeating it several times takes away the humor in it. When I'm in public, and I think somebody is looking at me, I yawn. Since yawning is contagious, they will yawn as well. Dealing with kids is all about distractions. If a kid is fussy, describe the area of an invisible device that you installed that prevents fussiness. Go into detail about how you installed all the latest features, and specify the edges and corners. Confusion will occupy a kid's attention. Doesn't want to eat, that's a challenge race, focus on the competition, not the food. I'm bored, ask them if chopping off their toes will help with boredom. Incentives are how you sell the product. One that I picked up from a friend of mine, whenever he was trying to pick out dinner with his GF, rather than ask what do you want, and getting the typical I dunno anything answer and then having suggestions shot down, start with what do you not want. Used it a few times in some of my relationships and it's the godsend question. I have two. First, active listening. I work with the public and have to make favorable connections quickly. I found people will quickly open up to you if you act genuinely interested in what they have to say. Second, and sneakier, figuring out how much of a sociopath the person you're dealing with is. When you apologize, add in something that showcases vulnerability or weakness. That is, I'm really sorry that I upset you so much. People lower on the scale will focus on the apology. People higher on the scale will focus on a perceived slight. When someone is upset, repeat back what they said. It helps them to hear what their words sounded like and isn't judgmental. Also, it makes you use their language instead of interjecting words they might associate with a different meaning or connotation, which leads to misunderstanding or defensive behavior. I learned this when I was in college and needed to diffuse lots of conflicts while still staying neutral. For example, my roommate sucks and I want to move rooms. So what you're saying is that you two don't get along? No, that's not it. He's just gross and doesn't wash his clothes. It sounds like you have a problem with his habits more than his personality. Yeah, I mean, who wears the same pair of underwear every day? Based on what you've said, if he washed his clothes regularly you wouldn't have a problem living with him? Well, no. Then let's go talk to him and see what we can do to make you both comfortable living together, etc. Essentially, it keeps you neutral to both parties. Doesn't implicate you at all. Helps you understand the root of the problem and therefore work on a solution. I had this exact situation happen a lot. However, some Raz would agree and say the other roommate was gross, which made that resident feel uncomfortable. Or they would tell the one complaining to not be rude and suck it up, which would make that roommate feel bad. It was a lot of word puzzling to try and stay neutral when often you just wanted to shake one of them and say, you are a problem. But unfortunately, that usually doesn't help situations. This also works great when you have someone going through mental health difficulties and don't know how to help them. I also had these conversations a lot as an rap, and even now as a teacher. I'm tired all of the time and I can't eat or sleep well. It sounds like you aren't feeling well. Notice it doesn't say depressed. You never want to diagnose someone because you don't know what meaning they attach to that word. Yeah, but I'm not sick. I've just felt down for months. That sounds like you are struggling through a lot. I am. I don't know what to do. What I'm hearing is you need some resources to help you. Here, let me walk you to the counselor. They have some great resources that help people who feel they are struggling. Now they aren't always short or clear-cut situations, and sometimes people do need a good shoulder shake, but this helps you to stay calm and neutral during conflicts. Here's one I pull on the idiot customers at work. If they are buying a pack of, say, Game or Dutch cigarillas, and they ask for a different pack because the one I grabbed felt stale to them, I'll pretend to put the package I originally grabbed back into the box and that I'm grabbing a new one. But in reality I'm just grabbing the same pack they just said they didn't want. They'll inspect it and will be happy because apparently it's no longer stale, even though it's the same exact pack. As a salesman, mirror your customer. If the customer liked the color red, you like red too. If the customer liked guns, you really are into guns. Even if you have very little knowledge about it, talk around it, but stay on the subject that the customer are into. If I want someone to agree with me for whatever reason, I'll subtly nod my head while asking them a yes or no question. It subconsciously primes them to agree. The trick is more potent if you get them to agree 2 or 3 times to really simple and obvious questions before the question you want them to agree to most. I use this trick for upselling at work all of the time. It works dangerously well if I use some non-verbal communication too. In online poker, if I'm severely overmatched, I'll let the timer almost expire with every move to frustrate the other player into overbetting, and then I take advantage. Just here to find out some psychological tricks I can use. When you want to find out information, I always say, I don't want to make you feel like you need to tell me, so say it at your own pace, and I do actually mean it. I don't want to force them into telling me, but they usually tell me eventually, and they say it in more confidence or detail because they came to me on their own terms. When I'm walking in a crowd of people, not nowadays obviously, and I see that I'm about to walk into someone going the opposite direction, to avoid the awkward side-to-side shuffle, I try to look past the person walking towards me instead of at them. This somehow makes the other person turn and walk around you instead of into you. I love doing this with people who seem to have too big of an ego to ever change their path for someone else. If I don't acknowledge their existence, they have to get out of my way. The best way to get a question answered is to just guess at the answer. If you are wrong, people will fall all over themselves to correct you. This is called Moore's Law. Smiling to pretend I'm happy, so people don't worry about my deteriorating mental state. How to exude confidence 101. When talking to people, look at a point right between their eyebrows. You won't get anxious about eye contact 9/10 times. This will make the other person start to fidget and get a bit uncomfortable. Sit back in your chair, back well rested on the back of the chair. The proverbial sitting at the edge of your seat makes you look too eager, desperate, or anxious. The added benefit is that keeping your back straight puts less pressure on your diaphragm. You can breathe in fully and control your voice a lot better. 9/10 times. It will make the other person lean forward and get a bit uncomfortable. Being nice and polite and very passive to get people to do what you want works really well in public/shopping situations. If I phrase requests very nice when I ask for something I know someone isn't supposed to do, and then use a little passive reverse psychology, no, it's okay, I understand if you can't do it, I can almost always get someone to do what I want as a huge favor. Hey, can I ask you a weird question? Curious minds now want to know the question, and what makes it weird. Doesn't have to be weird, but the person will pay more attention to it. Want people to trust you and tell you something? Wait for a moment with them and both comfortable and share something that holds value to you. Often people will feel like they now have to tell you something back. I work with a lot of people, and quite often they think that they somehow know better how my job is done. So, what I usually ask if they complain is, how would you suggest doing it then? And if they give me an irrational suggestion or something that's simply not possible, I ask them something along the lines of, and how do you imagine me doing this? This is usually the point where they realize that their ideas are probably not the best guidances when it comes to something they don't work with. Sometimes when I'm talking to someone, I say something and end the sentence with no pun intended even when there is no pun at all. Tie it. Do this 3 or so times throughout your conversation and watch that other person slowly question their own sanity. No pun intended. As a salesperson, getting the customer to buy extra crap by directing their gaze, like I would ask, "Oh, and do you need any extra day?" while deliberately looking in the direction of that item. The customer instinctively follows my gaze to it and ends up buying it after seeing it. This trick works way better than just asking if they'd like to buy something else. You don't need to see my identification. Whenever you want someone you're with to hold an object you're holding, but without giving them the opportunity to reject it, start a conversation about something that has to do with them and wait for them to be telling you about it excitedly, and then keep staring at them as you sneakily hand over whatever you're holding, and they won't interrupt their storytelling to refuse what you're giving them. Voila. Got rid of something you didn't want to hold. Add a little, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. At the end of each request. It's crazy how people will accept pretty much anything, as long as you give them a bit of false liberty. When someone is trying to sell me something, I just keep quiet. They often can't stand the silence, so keep talking about features etc. But then they run out of things to say and start ripping the price. Talking really fast in a calm voice while maintaining eye contact and barely blinking will make your bully very uncomfortable. When I'm discussing something with coworkers, where I need help from them, and they present arguments why they cannot provide help, I keep silent after they finish explaining why they cannot provide help. It gets kinds of awkward for them, and 9 times out of time, I get what I need. If you're playing rock paper scissors, you say a couple of choice words before you throw down. My defenses are solid. You can't smash me in this game. You will crumble against me. They will be more likely to throw rock. I will cut you down. My strategy will slice through you like a knife. They will be more likely to throw scissors. I'm prepared for this battle. I covered all of your options. I see through your brittle strategies. They will be more likely to throw paper. From what I can tell in my research, this has worked successfully at least 33% of the time. Subtly complimenting, asking questions about them, and carefully listening to people to get them to like spending time with me. I taught myself how to visualize things vividly in my head. I used to not be able to picture things in my head, but then I started telling myself that I didn't want to visualize whatever it was. And much like trying to forget an ex-girlfriend after a breakup, or trying not to have that stupid catchy song in my head, all of a sudden I could picture it, or hear it. It took some practice, but with time it became second nature. Edit, spelling. I hide candy all over my house, then I forget about it, and am later overjoyed when I find it. I'm a supervisor in the military. Most of the people I supervise are 19, 23 years old and still trying to figure life out. Imagine how you were at that age. We have the same issues. Anyway, fake it until you make it is all well and good until you have to handle millions of dollars in assets or process a lot of information, understand it, and relay it. So as a supervisor and trainer, I have to ensure that my very young trainees who are trying to 1. Not get in trouble and 2. Trying to impress me understand what they are doing. So, my psychological trick is the Socratic method. At any time they try to bullcrap an answer, I will double my questions, which forces them to either double down and dig their own grave or admit they don't know. I'm cool with people not knowing. We can address and train that. I'm not cool with fakers. This also works with political debates as well. Why do you think that? Why do you suppose that? What brought you to this conclusion? Honesty works wonders in many situations. Jazz hands. Nobody is going to remember this after a week at most. When talking to 1 or more people that you want to convince, nod your head in a yes movement or shake in a no movement. At the same time that you are telling them the thing you want them to disagree with. Subconsciously, they will interpret these gestures as if the thing you are saying is commonly accepted and will buy what you're saying. If you want to appear more convincing to your audience as a public speaker, hand them a sandwich. Pierce Hawthorne. If you really want to mess with someone's day, I have 3. 1. Only ask them questions when they have taken a big bite of their food. It's really awkward for them. 2. If you're sure they won't know it's you, while they're walking past you in the opposite direction. Say wake up in a loud voice. To take this a step further, put sticky notes with wake up written on them all over places where they'll see. 3. If you want to make someone's bad day even worse, while consoling them, say, despite what everyone says about you, you're a great person. When they repeatedly ask you what everyone else is saying, just say phrases like, oh, no, it's okay, it doesn't matter what they say, or quickly end the conversation. When you forget someone's name, ask their full name. This make them feel you wanted to know their last name. Yeah, you'll ever see Lucifer? Well, basically I know when my friends are lying, and I always say go on, tell me, and learn forwards with a slight smile on my face, just like what Lucifer does, even though it is his power, and it works every time. Funny enough though, it doesn't work on my GF. If you have set a boundary with someone, but they keep pushing, go silent. For example, if you have said that no, you cannot attend Christmas this year, for whatever reason, and no matter how much you repeat yourself, you get a but while some other push back, blank them, go silent, give a neutral facial expression, and do not engage. The silence will get awkward, but stick it out, and most of the time, they will change the subject. Smiling at people makes it easier for them to treat you nicely, because it's hard for someone to smile at you, and you not smile back. People have always treated me with kindness in public, and I put it down to me smiling and being nice. Most people are nice, so if you're nice to them, then they're nice to you. I do this thing where I'm kind and polite to people. Usually it causes them to be kind and polite back. We need to leave at 7:45. Actually we need to leave at 8. But you're always freaking late. Tell my boss to frick off. He doesn't bother me now, because I'm in the unemployment line. Rock, paper, scissors trick. Just before you play, pretend to clarify the rules with the other person by asking, okay, is it 1 2 cut? Or 1 2 3 cut? Doesn't matter what the answer is. But more often than not they'll throw scissors because you've said cut, so if you throw rock, you'll win. Sounds silly, but try it a few times and you'll see. Once I got called in the director's room, in a college. He looks at me as he wants to eat me. As a senior who knows that he'll bully student who looks weak, I look him straight in the eyes and didn't blink at all while he talks. After he finish, I'll say okay, and I look him in the eyes while saying, do you have anything else to say? He looks nervous and just chuckle to ease himself. And when I'm at the door, about to get out from the room, he shouted at me some gibberish I didn't hear. I immediately turn around and ask, what did you say? He just shook his head and said nothing point. So I went to my class, and one of my classmates who is also inside the room said that the director said I'm a cold-hearted girl, and looks like I jaff on what he said. So yeah, if someone wants to bully or just messing with you, try not to show your fear. In this case, the director just messing with me because he's a bit jealous of me. That's what my lecturer said. That's one of the effective trick that I still use to this days. These are not the droids you're looking for. All my life I've explored things that bored me most, just to see what I could extract from the experience. This led to me actually enjoying Anna Karenina and old Genesis music that I previously couldn't stand. I wouldn't call this a trick. When I want people to like me, I ask them questions about themselves, then ask follow-up questions. I can say nothing about myself yet they like me. It's also a good way to avoid talking about yourself.